In our busy lives, it's quite common to feel stressed. We're told to eat right, exercise and sleep well, but Mayron Lees believes the key is to build resilience to stress. Mayron founded InnerCents, which is an organisation that concentrates on the development of people through coaching and training programs in leadership, sales and stress management. He's also the author of a book called De-Stress. Welcome to Talking Business, Mayron.
Hi, great to be here.
So what's your background? How have you ended up being in this leadership, sales and de-stress space?
I guess, Peter, it came out of a passion that I've had for many, many years of trying to understand how to change behavior within organizations. And in order for that to occur, it's really important to understand how the mind works and what people respond to specifically from a leadership perspective. So that became quite a passion of mine in my own business. When I had my own company, it was really around, what are the components of effective leadership? And of course, with that, in our contemporary culture, stress is on the increase, especially now. And what does it take to be resilient to stress from a leadership perspective, from a sales perspective, and just generally in organizations?
Okay, so you made reference to the fact that there's a lot of stress in the corporate world and even in the small business world. What do you think is at the core of this stress? Is it externally generated or is it internally created?
That's a great question. Peter, most people would say, well, what stresses me out could be increased workloads, unfair targets, deadlines, traffic. But essentially it is how we interpret the events that are happening to us. Because you can have two people experiencing the same event. One person experiences stress and the other doesn't.
Does that ever happen in your relationship that maybe your partner is just a little bit more stressed than you over a certain incident in your life?
For sure. And I think
I think all of us have been in that sort of situation. Like, why aren't you worried about this? This is important. Oh, gee, yeah, I am worried.
You're right. And I think it's really how we perceive something. It's how we internalize what's happening to us, and how we interpret. And that's the real key word here, Pete, is how do we interpret the events that are happening to us, specifically the challenging ones.
It seems to me you're also alluding to the fact that out there are external things that can create problems, but if we're internally better skilled and schooled to handle them, we actually can deal with them a lot better.
For sure. And it's really all about how do we build internal resilience. What's interesting, Peter, is we have about 60,000 thoughts churning through our mind every single day, and most of those are negative. So if we leave our mind alone, the mind will default to thinking negatively. So we need to be consciously aware of what our thoughts are. Now, what's key here is most of our 60,000 thoughts are automatic. Right? If I asked you, tell me what you're going to think in the next 3 minutes, you won't be able to answer me probably. So it's not about trying to think about what they're going to be, but rather when they come in, what are we going to do with them? Specifically, the thought attacks. And the thought attacks are those negative thoughts that churn through our mind.
We're talking to Mayron Lees of a company called InnerCents and has a book called De-Stress. Now, in trying to build this inner resilience, what are the building blocks?
The first thing we need to appreciate is that stress specifically or challenging situations can only impact to the degree that we allow them to impact. So one of the keys to building inner resilience is to find a new way to have a relationship with our challenges. Whatever they, whether it be work situations, whether it be relationship issues, health issues, whatever it is for us. And the way we have that better relationship, how we evolve that better relationship, is to try and make peace with the challenging situation and find not only the peace, but the benefit or the opportunity that the challenges present. Instead of seeing the challenges as our enemy, let's see it as something positive and look for the benefit or the opportunity that can arise. What can we learn about ourselves because of the situation? What can we do differently next time because of that situation?
Can I give you a typical situation of what might be a continuing stress situation for many employees, and that is the fact that they feel underappreciated, they aren't being paid what they think they're worth, and they believe that the people above them aren't really seeing the potential this person has. How do you deal with that? How do you build inner resilience to that?
Well, I think as soon as we start looking externally for our own internal needs, for example, validation and appreciation, then we are going to be continually enslaved to that external source for that internal feeling of validation or appreciation. So we also need to know what we can and can't control. We can't control entirely a manager giving us those accolades and making us feel appreciated. But what we can control is the thought that we can have about our own work and about our own achievements, and to pat ourselves on the back sometimes and to say, wow, I really do feel I'm making a difference, without that external validation. Of course, it's easier said than done, and the normal human need is to feel appreciated, and it would be fantastic if managers could do that better. But if that's not the case and people are finding the lack of appreciation, it's really sitting down with themselves and appreciating themselves, most importantly, in terms of their own contribution and feeling good about the difference that they're making to the organization.
Okay, I was reading a great book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by a guy called John Maxwell. And one of the main points that Maxwell offered to potential leaders was, if you can't lead yourself, you'll never be able to lead others. In a sense, are you suggesting that people have to learn to change themselves, lead themselves into a different mindset so they're no longer plagued by the old thought patterns that, as you say, are historically negative?
Yes, I think your point is extremely valid. You know, Socrates once said, "Know thyself," and it's extremely it's true. And I think what's important is the art of self-management, and to really understand of how our emotions play out, and to be in control of that, and to feel that we are the master of our own emotions via being the master of our thoughts. And that's very important in terms of, from a leadership perspective, is the way that we think, therefore the way that we behave, and our emotions associated with that will impact the organization in a very meaningful way. I remember Gordon Cairns, when he was leading up Lion Nathan, said one thing which was very impactful, and he said, for this organization to change, I must change.
That's right. Buckminster Fuller made the point that if you want to change people's thinking, you've got to give them a tool that will change their thinking, because changing people by themselves is very hard. Does your book come with that tool that will change people's thinking?
It does, and it comes with a tool called the red card. And the red card is a technique of how we can shift our thinking. How can we reframe our thoughts so that we can start thinking better? And if we think better, we'll feel better. Stress is a feeling, and it comes from the way we're thinking. So similarly, the red card technique works in a similar way that a referee sends a player off the field for doing a damaging act, pulls out the red card, off he goes. The same way as we can use that red card to send out the negative thoughts or the thought attacks from our mind. And the red card simply has 3 points on them. The first point is, these thoughts are harmful to me. Recognize that we're going to thinking negative. If we're thinking negatively, we're going to be feeling in a negative way. That might cause us to feel pessimism and doubt or uncertainty. The second point on the card is, I can choose different thoughts. Let's face it, no one holds a gun to our head, say, we've got to think this way, I'm going to pull the trigger. And the last and most important point on the red card is, how else can I interpret this? What other way can I look at the situation so it can be my friend, and I can see it from a more optimistic perspective, something that can benefit me rather than being an enemy?
Marion, some really great ideas. The one thing that worried me was listening to your South African accent, thinking about Jonathan Kaplan pulling out a card out of his pocket when he penalises the poor old wallabies or the Waratahs. Thanks for joining us on Talking Business.
It's really a pleasure. Thank you.